All right, welcome back everybody. Ryan here today for dpsdiscounter.com. So we have a 2021 Peterbilt 579 with a X15 Cummins. Today we are going to remove the DPF and the DOC for a cleaning. Show you step by step what you have to do. These systems are pretty well the same depending on whether it's a Kenworth, a Peterbilt. Some of the Freightliners and Volvos do have the same system as well. So I didn't show removing the steps because that's going to be very specific to whatever truck model and make you have. So the first thing you want to do is go ahead and get the steps out of the way. There's a bracket and a heat shield that comes off. On this 579, it was a nice, pretty easy system to get off. It just had 4 bolts on the top, 4 bolts on the bottom, and everything just pulled right off the heat shield and everything. So pretty quick to get the steps and everything out of the way in the guard. Also, if you have a later model PACCAR MX13, it has pretty much the exact same system as well. Again, if you have a PACCAR later model, it will be pretty much the same. Usually before I start tearing into this, I kind of like to do a general overall inspection to see if there's any leaks anywhere. Down here in the decomposition section or SCR. On this particular truck, it looks like we have a little bit of an exhaust leak up here. You can see a little bit of black soot. So those are just all things to take a look at. Also looking up at your bellows there that looks like a little springy accordion-like thing. Check that for any leaks, because any type of upstream leaks can cause premature plugging up of the DPF or failures down the road and a bunch of fault codes that you don't want. So take a look at all that stuff. I mean, in your general overall inspection, if you're doing your day-to-day pre-trip inspection, I always made it a habit to check all those things over. So first thing we're going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and get this temp sensor out. We're going to take this little module holder here off, or bracket. I believe these are 8mm bolts. We're going to take these off, get all this stuff out of the way. There's a pressure tube back here that we will have to disconnect from the DPF. And there's a couple different ways you can do that, and depending on how everything's situated, we'll kind of cross that bridge when we come to it, how we're going to do that. So like I said, first thing I'm going to take these temp sensors out. And this is a 18mm. And again, this was an 8. Then when we're doing jobs here in our shop, we use these little bins. We have to keep all the bolts in here so that way you don't lose anything. When it comes off, goes right in the bin. If I drop something, pick it up, put it in there immediately, because you don't want to. A lot of these bolts are kind of special. So I mean, you can, if you do lose one, I mean, you can put a different metric size bolt in there if you have it. But we like to stick with the original if possible. I really didn't go over tools at the beginning of this. I mean, there's really nothing special that you need. Basically, a basic metric socket set, wrench set, up to about 19mm. You should be pretty straight. Deep wells, and a wrench set up to 19mm. And a couple pry bars we'll use to pop these clamps off. This one here is going to be that one's going to be a little bit easier to get to from underneath. Okay, so I got that last bolt out, so this is loose. Next thing I do is pop this other temp sensor number 2 out. And I've typically had good luck with the temp sensors coming out of the bungs on these. You know, on some of the older stuff, they get kind of galded into the threads, and you kind of have to use alternative methods to get them out. But again, with this particular system, they usually come out pretty easy. So obviously this is not going to come all the way out in this particular configuration, so we're just going to leave it loose right now. So there's a couple ways that you can navigate these pressure tubes. One is to take it loose here, and then again kind of do the same method, just leave it in until you're ready to pull the DPF, or you can unplug them up here. So these, you press that in and pull it down. It's just like that. So just be careful not to break that. It don't take a whole lot of pressure. And then this pressure tube here you can actually just leave connected because this is going to stay behind. So that's pretty much everything underneath here. So we're going to go back out to the front outside the truck and continue the process here. Okay, so we've got everything disconnected, sensors, pressure tube from the DOC and DPF. Next thing we're going to do, what I like to do in our shop, because a lot of times I don't have a huge shop here, so when we bake these DOC and DPFs, they take approximately 24-hour process. So if we're moving trucks in and out, we like to, I mean, you can still start the truck up and move it. You're going to get a bunch of faults when you do that because obviously stuff's unplugged. But you can, if you have to move the truck around your driveway or shop or whatever, you can move it, so that's what we do here. Now, if you're not going to move the truck, what I'm getting at is we like to support the rest of this system. So if you got a little like auto jack or something or bottle jack, we just want to come up and just support it. What I'm going to do here, because we may pull this truck out, is you can use a ratchet strap or a little quarter-ton chain fall. What I'm going to do is come up around here and hook to the frame. And a lot of this makes for a little bit easier reinstallation as well in the second part of this. So your frame is like a U shape or a sideways U shape. So I just hooked that hook on the bottom edge of that U. And then we'll just put this right here. And again, we're just using this as a support. We're not pulling up on it or anything like that. So just kind of just snug. And that's it. So next thing I'll do is go ahead and take down this bracket here, or band clamp that holds the DOC into the truck. So Snap-on sells these extended link sockets. Unfortunately, the ones I have, they're only 1/4 inch, so we have to use an adapter. But they're really nice for some of these clamps have a really long stud that comes off of them, and some of your average, you know, regular 13 millimeters, sometimes it's actually right at the end of it. So if it's a little bit longer, your normal deep well won't work, or you'd have to use a wrench, which takes forever. Actually, I just take that right to the end. You don't have to take it all the way out because this is like a T-bolt. So you just walk it off like that. It actually has the same type of configuration on the other side, so you can go around the back and loosen it up, then you can pull the whole thing out, which we'll just leave that there for right now. Next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and loosen up the DOC here, both clamps. And just right out the bat, it's not uncommon if these clamps have been on for a while to break these. I know on our site we carry a full line of clamps and gaskets, as well as your DPFs, DOCs, SCRs, and all that good stuff. But if you break a clamp, it isn't the end of the world. Like I said, it happens here every day. This clamp, I'm going to go ahead and take the nut all the way off. While you're doing that, just in case it does pop loose, I like to keep a hand on this so it doesn't fall off. Now see, this one's loose. There's different sections as you go around this. What we use the little pry bar here. Kind of get right in here, and just pop it loose. Pop over to the side, this to the side. Sometimes on these there is another bracket up here. It's right up here. And we have to take that loose to get enough flexibility with that bellows to be able to pull this up out of this kind of base section here. So it's kind of hard to see. It's right here. And there's on this particular model, there's a bolt right here. Looks like it's a 16. And I'm going to tell you, a power ratchet, especially a powerful one, can be your best friend when doing these types of jobs where you can't get a whole impact in there. So now we got a lot of play in that. We'll move that out of the way. You want to be careful taking this out because these are quite expensive if you damage it. Okay, there's your DOC. Now we'll go ahead and get this clamp out of the way. And we can just leave this here for now. And we'll go ahead and take our DPF clamp off. Wrong size. So now where we left that temp sensor in, as we bring this out, we can pull that out without bending it, which it looks like somebody actually may have replaced it at some time because it's a little bit bent. Okay, and there's our DPF. So when we pull these both out, we're inspecting for any types of weird stains, any type of packing. You can use some real small welding rod. So on the DOC, you should be able to go all the way through and hear a ting where you're hitting metal. So I'd check it in about maybe 15 different places, kind of going around the edges in the center. And just to make sure there's no face plugging on this, because you have face plugging, it can cause, more. If you're cleaning your DPF with a face plug DOC, you're just kind of wasting your time. With that, and we found with our cleaning system that if there's extensive carbon packing in the DOC, that we've tried cleaning them, we've experimented with them, and it doesn't always work. If it's substantial to where you can only go down in this, an inch or so. If you got a little bit right at the bottom, you're usually fine. But if there's extensive packing in it, then you're better off just to buy a new one. The DPF. So this is pretty typical, looks pretty good. Nothing abnormal. It's supposed to be black like this. No cracks, anything visible. If you're taking this to get cleaned, any reputable DPF cleaning service, they should have a test table where they can do a light test, make sure there's no internal cracks. They'll go ahead and do a pin drop test to make sure there's no carbon packing within the DPF as well, and also do a restriction test. We'll turn it over to the outlet side. This should be perfectly clean like this. So there's a little spot there where I touched it when I was pulling it out. But again, you don't want to see any weird stains, any cracks, like any spots of soot, or if there's soot coming around the edge. See, this is all nice and white. So this looks like, we'll put it on our test table and check everything out. But from a visual, this looks like a good DPF. So if you are taking this to a DPF service for cleaning, once you get out, I'd go ahead and take this, this pressure sense tube out. Because this, obviously, when it goes up to 1100 degrees, this is going to melt. So we need to get that out before we take it to where we're going to get it cleaned at. Now just keep in mind when you are taking this out that when you go to reassemble, you will have to put that back in when you go to reassemble, because when it's where it is behind this bracket, you won't be able to stick it in. So it's always good to get that back in there. You can leave it loose until you get it positioned, but it needs to be inserted before you put the DPF back in. So just one little tip there. So our DPF is ready to go in for cleaning. I got a piece of wire here. I was going to show you what I was talking about with the DOC. So that's what we're looking for right there. Now there are a lot of other factors that can damage this DOC or make it or degrade the materials that are in it, so it won't heat the gas. When it's on a regen, this is what heats everything up to do a regen, to burn everything out. Things like coolant, oil, fuel, excessive fuel, any of those items, that's why we look for excessive staining. So any of those things, if the truck's not heating up for a regen and you've had an EGR cooler leak, a liner, any head gasket, any of those things where you'd have coolant going through, or a failed injector with excessive fuel, or a turbo going bad that would throw oil through your exhaust system, all those things can damage this. But you want to see a nice clean DOC like this and no packing in it. So I feel pretty good about this DOC, knowing that there hasn't been any other issues with the truck. So that's pretty much it for the disassembly process. Not too long here. I don't even think we had a half an hour into it. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the disassembly of a DOC and a DPF on a X15 or later model PACCAR system, pretty much across all makes and models with the Cummins or the PACCAR. We'll stay tuned for part 2 of the reassembly. If you are looking for any types of these products, clamps, gaskets, DPFs, DOCs, SCRs, sensors, clamps, gaskets, all that good stuff, check out dpfdiscounter.com. Also a great resource for parts references, cross-reference, all that good stuff. And we try to keep overhead and everything low, so we try to provide the best prices on the internet.